John, while people are coming in, this is our first Zoom that we've done. Well, official Zoom, right? That Cooley
Right.
Comics has done, and we are launching these every month through our online community. At least that's the plan. And we want to have people like yourself who are experienced and wise, as much as your son doesn't want me to say it, right? To
Yeah.
inflate your head. But really, seriously, that have a lot of experience in getting your creative content out into the world and like what it really takes. Because there's a reality here, right? We're helping people get over that first creative hurdle potentially, but also then it's like, hey, I kind of like this and maybe I want to make a business out of it. What's that look like? Right. So, John, we've known each other a really long time. I won't get into boring part of how we connected and all that stuff, but um, why don't you just tell the people all about all of your fame and
Oh,
wisdom and
very
all the
good.
things? But for real, like what? How would you introduce yourself?
I'm just the guy who writes funny things. Uh, and I actually went to school for computer science because my parents wanted me to have a real job. But I always wanted to be a cartoonist, but I knew I couldn't draw, so I wrote a bunch of gags. And when I was a junior in college, this is a long time ago, in like 1978, I sent a bunch of my gags to Charles Schultz, the creator of Peanuts, and said, "Hey, this is pretty cocky, by the way." I said, "Hey, Charles, you're getting pretty old. Your hand's starting to wobble a little bit. Why don't you let me write Peanuts for you so then you don't have to worry about it?" So I sent him a bunch of gags, and I didn't hear much. And then one day I'm home on spring break, and my sister picks up the phone, and she starts taking a note and says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Zakour is now home. Can I take a message?" So she says, "Charles Schultz." I go, "Wait a minute, wait, that's for me." And so I ran up, grabbed the phone from her. She's my little sister, so I could do that. And on the other end of the phone was Charles Schultz, the creator of Peanuts. He said he really liked my gags. I seem to be very funny, but Peanuts is going to live and die with him. And so he suggested that I do my own stuff.
Hmm.
And so I tried to do my own stuff, but I really could not draw. I mean, I draw stick figures and stuff like that. But then, so I got a job in computer science, working for Cornell. And then one day I got caught in an early 1980s budget cut. So I'm just hanging out at the mall and spending my time on unemployment, and I find this book that you can write gags. It's like, well, yeah, I can write gags. And then it told me that I could write gags and send them to other cartoonists, and they would send me money. I said, well, I can try this. So I wrote a bunch of gags. I sent them to a bunch of magazine cartoonists and a bunch of syndicated cartoonists, and they really liked them. And over the years, I've sold literally 10,000, tens of thousands of gags. One day, I wrote Lucy, no, not Lucy, Nancy, Marmaduke, Mother Goose and Grimm, Frank and Ernest. So that was kind of cool to see a Sunday paper and like, hey, I wrote five of these. So that was neat. And then I decided, okay, I've done this gag writing stuff. Now I want to write books. So my wife and I moved to Costa Rica because Costa Rica paid for her master's and her PhD. No, her master's, but not her PhD. So she owed them 2 years. So we moved to Costa Rica. So from a little town in Costa Rica, I stood there, sat there. I would fax jokes in to the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, to the Joan Rivers Show. I was writing for them at that time. And I also wrote my first novel, The Plutonian Blonde. It's just, I have no idea why I wrote a novel. I just figured, well, I'm funny, I can write stuff. And then it was 1994 by then, or 1992. So a friend and I published it online as an interactive World Wide Web book. It was the first book to do that. It won a Webby, which was kind of cool. And then I thought, well, that was it. But then ebooks came. And so
Hmm.
I said, okay, I'll send it to these guys. I forget the name of the press. Said, hey, would you like to do an ebook? Make my book into an ebook. And they had read it as an electronic online book. So they said, sure, we'll do that. So it became the number one selling ebook in the nation until some hack named Stephen King wrote Riding the Bullet, and that knocked me off the bestsellers list. So I was by then. But then I figured,
Stephen King
okay,
got you.
yeah, I figured good. I've had my run with it. Oh, it was also on the Sci-Fi Channel's website. So, I've sold this thing twice and like, oh, that's pretty good. But then on a whim, I sent it to Daw Books, Penguin Publishing, and then I got this weird letter from their editor saying, I love your stuff. Let's make 3 books. And, the rest is history. So, and then, and I'm at Comic-Con promoting my Plutonian Blonde, and the Simpsons are there for their comic. And my son goes, oh, well, you write comics. You should go talk to them. I go, no, they don't want to hear from some jerk from upstate New York. But my son, he was bigger than I was. He pushed me over there. And so I said, hey, do you guys ever use writers for your comics? And they said, oh, yeah, we really do. And they said, send us some stuff. And I did. So then I wrote a bunch of Simpson comics. So, and that spread into other things for Nickelodeon and stuff like that. And then DC had this contest called Zuda, where, you do a 10-page comic and then people would vote for it. I have the distinct pleasure of being the only person ever to finish in the top 3 4 times and never to win. But they paid me for my top 4. And then I was going to do, for a while, full disclosure, my cousin is a vice president at DC now. He's the vice president of creative content. So that got me in to do some Teen Titans Go. And I did a lot of work for Mad Magazine. So that was kind of cool. Even though I've never sold non-comedy to DC, and I've never sold anything to Marvel. I almost had a chance to do a video game with Marvel during COVID. I was doing something with a Mexican company that was doing a Marvel video game. They had bought the rights, but COVID cost that, so that never happened.
So, so this is incredible. There's so much to unpack.
So I've done a weird potpourri of weird writing. Yeah, and the other thing I tell people, and anybody asks, what do I need to be a writer, a full-time writer? I need to tell them a significant other with a real job. I couldn't do any of this, especially at first, if it wasn't for my wife with a real job in the insurance and stuff like that.
These are some realities, right? And I think that's really important.
Yeah, you don't make a lot of, even, most writers don't make a lot of money. You get on TV, oh, my best-selling novel, yeah, I have this mansion. That does happen, but very, very few people.
Yeah. So John, there's a couple things. I'm just like, okay, we warped from like 1970 something to
now.
So and by the way, if people have questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. So the first thing, and this is me being naive, right? We started in this sort of comic book delivery mechanism, but for us, it's more about the stories, having people tell sort of real stories to get over that creative and confidence hurdle that I mentioned. But so you said you were writing gags. Are these just like one-liner jokes that you sent to?
Yeah, these are one-liner jokes, and these are in the olden days, the 70s when I started. So I'd actually I typed them out on my computer, print them out, but then I'd have to cut them out and paste them on, little 3x5 cards and send them to the different cartoonists.
So these were like your motivating factors in this were just like, why not?
Why not? Yeah, because I'm funny. I can do this. And I loved comics as a kid, and I figured out very early on, my artistic talent isn't good enough to do this. So I will write gags. And then, eventually it turned into my own comic strip for United Media, Working Days, which I still do. And then I almost had something with King Features, Zany Zoo. I don't know if you've ever seen shots of that, but it was really nice. They really liked it. They said, we just need to change this and this. And then they changed it and didn't like it, and I never heard from them again. So it's a very cruel business. You gotta like let the rejection wash off of you or inspire you. At first I'd get really bitter and say,
or you have a son who's way bigger than you that can push you into the Simpsons.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's a power lifter. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we did with the Simpsons.
Well, and that was my question, right? So right before we got on here, you were talking about getting, in front of the Simpsons, and it wasn't like you watched it and you were like, hey, I should do this. It was just like, but they were there, and we were talking about stepping outside of maybe the comfort zone or just.
Oh yeah, that's why I do. Comic Cons are definitely outside my comfort zone because it's such a mob of wall of people and stuff like that.
So you go to get out of your comfort. Why do you go then?
Because I got to get out of my comfort zone now and then. It's what yeah, it's nice to be in your comfort zone, but you want to be a little out of that comfort zone to inspire you and make you work a little harder.
Yeah.
So you want to be at that, I'm a human behaviorist and, positive psychologist. So I realize now I have to be a little bit out of my comfort zone, but
It's
not too much. If I get too
it's
much out of my comfort zone, it's
yeah.
it's like, oh, plus there's the other thing. I'm acrophobic, and I don't know if you've been to the Vegas or Chicago conferences or
Mhm.
conference centers. Their escalators are super high. They are
Oh,
super high. So my son got used to finding elevators for me.
so this is a phobia of heights or
Oh
something,
yeah, I
or
do not like heights. And
got
then
you.
once I'm at a writers convention and I'm walking with two really famous writers. I won't mention their names because I'm not going to name drop, but I'm walking with them. They're talking to me about Plutonium Blonde and how they really like it. And we hit the escalators like, oh no, I don't want
A
these
panic
guys to
attack.
know that I'm afraid of heights. So
Oh
I
no.
just go up the escalator with them. Well, personally, I wasn't sure who they were until my agent came over and said, "Do you know who those two people were?" It's like, no. But then it's like, oh, okay, so I'm glad I went up the escalator with them.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like that's very out of your comfort zone, then I would say.
That's totally on my comfort
So,
zone.
so let me ask you, John, a couple things. Do you remember the first time you mentioned getting paid, right? So the
Yes.
compensation, like it's not a, it's something you mentioned having a significant other with a like I'll use air quotes, right? Because I have the same sort of scenario where
Right.
it's like a real job. But do you remember the first time you got paid and like how that happened for
Uh,
writing?
the first time I got paid, it might have been
Yeah.
in college. I think I did. I actually did a drawn cartoon for Dungeons and Dragons magazine, and they bought it. So that was really kind of cool.
And how
Uh,
did that work though? You sent it in and they were
yeah,
like,
I
"Hey,
sent
this is
it in.
cool.
Yeah,
Here's
I
20
saw.
bucks."
Oh, they're looking for. Oh, and then for Atomic Scientist also. I saw there. So in those, I can still draw like little balloon figures and stuff like that. So those are my first sales. But I knew I was really limited and could never go, much beyond, basic. I think I have some of them around somewhere that my first things I
Well,
sold.
and maybe I can warp up to like now because you do this professionally.
Right.
Then you were doing it, but maybe it was more of a intro level sort of
Yeah,
like,
I'm
"Hey,
still
let me
working
just get
and
20
I had a
bucks." And
day job and stuff like
yeah,
that.
but this is interesting because the concept or the thought, not just the concept, the reality of intellectual property and licensing and contracting, like when you are writing, is there a like hard contract and a negotiation? Like what goes on behind the scenes, at least in just general? Because I think there's a lot of when as I talk to writers and creatives, it's like, well, I don't want to, someone's got to sign an NDA or they're going to steal my thing
But
or
there's a bunch of NDAs, yeah, and there's also a bunch of different rights. It depends how much you're going to give me.
Mhm,
Like there's, pay on publication, and they publish, they pay, and then I have rights to publish it again.
mhm,
There's first use where they pay a little more, and they make sure they are the first ones to use it, which is really nice. And then
mm,
there's occasionally, like this is really funny. I had a Bill Gates cartoon when I was doing my computer tunes, and it was Bill Gates's to-do list. It was make money, make money, make money. And then Ballmer, Bill Gates's partner at the time, his secretary called us and said, "Oh, we want to buy that cartoon and for all rights." And so that I sold that for much more money.
So you could write about Bill Gates without
Yeah,
any permissions or
yeah.
anything.
And when you're writing comedy, it's fair game as long as you say, "Oh yeah, it's a joke."
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
Bill
but
Gates punched me in the arm. Yeah, because after I
now
was
you're
doing
name dropping.
yeah, because when I was working for Prodigy, I was doing the daily computer cartoon for them, which I was actually drawing at the time, which
Mm.
seems weird. They introduced, we were on Bon Jovi's bus in Vegas, and they introduced me to Bill Gates and said, "This is the guy who's making fun of you on our site before he buys it." And then he laughed and he punched me in the arm, and I was like, but I didn't. Yeah, they would have had a fit if I did
So
that.
there's all these different contract negotiations. I would
Yes,
imagine that
yeah,
it
yeah,
can get
yeah.
very complex and all these kind of things. But when in the beginning, Were you like afraid that people were going to take your ideas, or did you get past that somehow
Nah,
and
there's
just
so
say
many
like,
ideas in the world. I'm never afraid somebody's going to steal some of mine.
s-
Yeah. So yeah, my first ones were no contract. My first sales were gags that I
mhm.
sold to like Randy Glassenberg and Wall Street Journal, all those places, and they're artists, and I just the cartoonists would give me a percentage of what they made. If you sell a cartoon to the New Yorker or something, you make $500, and they'd give me 25% of that. And that
So
was
you were,
all very much handshake type of agreements. And it's
gotcha.
still, in some ways, when you're dealing with individuals, a handshake type of agreement type of thing. But when
Mhm.
I'm dealing with big companies, then, like with Sci-Fi Channel, it was contracts and NDAs and stuff like that.
Right, right, right. So getting your stuff out there the first time, it's like, and I went through this, I've been through this in other past career lives, right? Where we talk about investors in different companies. And, if you show an investor at a particular level an NDA, they'll just move on to the next potential opportunity. They'll just say, fine, whatever, like I'm not
Yeah,
signing
no, you
that.
don't give investors NDAs. No,
Well, of course,
it's
but
their
at
money.
a certain level, at a certain point, you do when it gets serious, right? And
I
so
mean, you signed their NDAs, but I've never given an investor an NDA. It's like,
there
no,
you
I've
go.
signed from investors, like, but no, I've never given no, it's their money. I'm a big believer, if you're giving me money, I will listen to you,
Yeah.
to a certain extent. There's some people I won't take money from because, oh no, we just, like, I
Well,
optioned a movie and the guy wanted to change it way too much. So I pulled out of the option.
so there was a negotiation process that
Oh yeah,
where
yeah.
you
That's
were
where
out.
agents and lawyers get involved, and
Okay.
that
So
gets
let's jump to that real quick because I was gonna wait for later on to ask this. But agents, lawyers, who are the people that you have to have on your team to get really serious about this? Maybe from the beginning, like who do you need to have? Maybe it's just you,
from the beginning.
right?
It's just you, but then once you sell stuff, then you need an agent because they can be the bad guy for you. They can negotiate with you, and like my agent tells me, he gets me a bunch of stuff that he says if it was up to you, you'd sell your books for magic beans, and in many ways he might be right. But no, it's important to have them, and they negotiate things I never even heard of, like foreign rights, and and they cross, they don't let, like when I do a book or a comic, they don't let anybody buy movie rights unless
Mm.
they're actually going to make a movie out of it and stuff like
Mm,
that.
okay. So but there's a certain point I would imagine that this investment in, because
Yeah,
you've even,
you gotta have money to show them before they'll play with you.
so talk about that.
Unless
You
you're
got to have
suing
money to
them.
show them before
Yeah,
they'll
like
play with
I
you. What
came
does
to
that
them
mean?
with a contract in hand from Dog, and that's how I got my agent. And then The Simpsons, and then my new thing. Yeah, usually I come with contract in hand and say, "Hey, can you agent?" And now they take me on. But if the funny thing is, they had rejected me. The agent that I currently use had rejected me before came at me with a 3-book deal.
Ah, okay. And so how did you just through networking relationships,
Well,
you
I
ended
knew
up,
him through my cousin who works at DC, so it's like,
but
okay,
that was a way that you could actually like
yeah,
get a
yeah.
contract in place by yourself or with a lawyer or something or
No, I did that by myself, but I also have a
hmm.
lawyer.
So you went, oh my gosh, I have a contract and now I need a lawyer and an agent.
Yeah, yeah, that's well, for like original stuff and for movies and things, it's good to have a lawyer and an agent. And then for a while, I had a business manager, but I didn't like that.
Okay, you didn't like it because you just like doing your own
Yeah, I don't trust them. Yeah, my wife thinks I should have a business manager, but maybe someday.
thing. Then you can get the Zoom link
Well,
the
because I
right way.
give too much of my money away to other people.
Well,
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
the agent is really useful. The agents I highly recommend them if you can get them. Lawyer is good to have, but now our son's a lawyer, so I can just go to him for the new entertainment law. But still,
the
he's useful there. And uh, business manager, I don't think I need yet. If I ever get a lot of money, then yeah, I'll get a business manager.
but definitely so as you evolve, right? So you can go build your stories, your narratives, your creative works, start to farm it out and get some, I don't know, interest somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Through different like right here, this is a relationship. I mean, there's people on the Zoom, amazing, familiar faces, and you're here, right? So here's a person that you could say, hey, I was on this Zoom. And I don't know, John, we can talk about your capacity and availability to answer questions. I appreciate you making time even just for this. But that's also like prioritization of storytelling, of getting too far ahead of oneself early on, right? Like, oh well, I'm gonna lawyer up, I'm gonna get a contract.
no,
I
don't
don't
do
have
any
a
of that.
book,
But yeah, yeah,
like, but I
finish
don't have
your
a
story. yeah, you definitely need to finish your story before you can hit. Nobody's going to represent you just based on pure talent, unless you're super duper nuts, or unless you're a star or something. But yeah, most people won't represent you until you have a story. You need
So
a story,
do
at
you
least the
have
first draft of the story.
yeah, do you have like a prioritization in terms of like world building, character arcs, like pacing, formats? How do you let's start talking about a little bit of the creative part of it.
Okay,
Like,
world building starts first. Basic idea, this is my concept, log line, this is my elevator pitch, this is what I want to do. And then general idea of the world, very general idea of the world. Then I build my characters. And then I get a little more specific. I do what they eat for dinner, what they eat for lunch, what they want to watch on TV, what their favorite thing, well, or whatever, what their favorite thing is. So I do a lot of that. And then when it starts rolling, the characters start writing for themselves.
hmm.
One of
And
my books for Daw, I got so into the flow, I replaced my lead character's name with my own for 3 chapters. And the
mm.
editor sent it back and said, John, we know you're a really cool guy, but we're pretty sure you're not really out fighting giant robots in your spare time. It's like, no, I messed that up.
So is this another person editor?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, then this is the publisher. Yeah, I
The
mean, for some things, for things that I'm not going to that I put online and stuff, I will hire an editor, but they can be really expensive. You
got
need a
you.
real job before you can do that. But no, once something's published, then hopefully, even though it's changing more and more now, you'll have a good editor. But now some people are editing with AI.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second, but so you're creating this world, you're creating the characters. What are you actually going to someone to try to get a contract with? Is it the
Oh,
full
not to
book? Is
have
it
an
the
entire story.
framework? What's that?
I mean, it depends. In a comic, you usually need the entire story in 10 pages
Okay.
drawn out. Okay. In a book, you need 3 or 4 chapters, but you need the entire story. You have to know your beginning, middle, and end before you try to sell it to anybody.
And that goes for the comics,
That
books,
goes
the
for
whole
anything.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah. They want to know where it's going.
Cool. And James actually asked you a question. We must be on the same wavelength, right? So, how do you develop a book series, the story genre, characters, cover design, audience hook? And this is specifically for Plutonium Blonde, but this is an interesting part of the question. Do you listen to the audience feedback? So, are you putting it out first and like getting people to read and then getting input, or are you just like, you know what, this is my story.
This is
I'm
my
just gonna go.
story. I mean, I listen, but people tell me things about my books that I had no idea about because I don't read. Because quite frankly, there's a lot when I wrote Plutonian Blonde. I don't remember writing that line. Like I'd say to Larry, who wrote it with me, oh, that was a great line. He goes, oh, you wrote that. It's like, oh. And I've been stopped at cons telling me, oh, you're wrong with Alpha Centauri. It's like this many light years away. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's Zach. It wasn't me. Zach messed that up. He doesn't know that. But yeah, but it started off as an outline. Truthfully, once I had the character, once I had the story, then in the olden days, I'd write an outline, and
Mhm,
the outline is more of a map.
mhm.
And to have a good adventure, sometimes you have to wander off the map. And once the story
Mm.
gets going, the outline changes and gets better.
Yeah, I was
And the
having
first drafts always are really bad. Yeah, really bad. But I say first drafts are, the crap that leads to like the nice flowering book when you're finally done.
well, and that's one of the things that we have started to look at from the Cooley Comics perspective, right? It's really none of us have had any experience making comic books, which is why it's so great to talk to you and other people like you, right? But what we are able to do is create this first draft, this first copy, this first concept, and do it kind of quickly using human creativity and the tools that we have at our fingertips now that we are calling AI, right?
Okay.
Again, I'll touch on that in a second because I know that I've seen and followed some Facebook things that you've done and maybe dabbled a little bit with AI. But
I've
before I
dabbled somewhat. Yeah, I mean, it saves me, hiring an artist for something I'm going to just throw up on Facebook. I don't
concepts
want to
and
pay an artist, $50 an hour. I'll use
sure,
AI. But anything I'm going to
cons
publish, I would use a real artist because I like to
right,
give
right.
artists money and stuff.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we really lean on too is that this is an accessibility tool. So we now have, people who are working with us that have never been in the creative field or considered themselves creative, but are now actually leaning into this type of world and industry. So it's opening the door to a lot of people who maybe wouldn't have had this opportunity, and people with different abilities, people who have different challenges with literacy, right? We can utilize this to get the creativity out of one's brain and into a rough draft, right? But then we hire people to refine that level
Yeah,
to that level.
yeah, use
Um,
the humans for that. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's part of the thing. Use
So
real
do
humans.
you are I guess that I'll just ask, so how do you use AI? What do you use it
I
for?
use AI to make pickleballs. Because I don't, animated pickleballs. That's what I would do. Because I don't think I'm stealing from any artist when I'm doing that. And I need something quick. I need a quick icon or something. Then I would use AI.
Hmm. Yeah, concept stuff then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nothing
and
that I sell. Nothing that I
right,
sell will I use AI. Even though
right,
it's
right.
getting harder to avoid AI for some things now, because even if you're writing Word, AI wants to edit you.
Mm-hmm.
Copilot wants to edit you and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
don't know if Final Draft does that yet. I haven't paid attention, but
Yeah, it's getting to that point. I mean, we talk a lot about, really leaning into the AI as an accessibility tool, right? The fact that we can work with, a couple hundred kids in a city school district that, would provide this new open-mindedness, right? That, oh my gosh, like I can tell my story or tell a story, create a character, visualize something that's been trapped in my mind for 5 years because I have a limitation in my physical ability to draw, or
right.
or my limitation in finding the right words or spelling the right words. Now I can craft something that I can present to someone that it truly is from my human brain,
Yeah,
right? And so that's one of the things when we teach how to use different generative art tools. We always tell people, do not put The Simpsons to design the artwork for it. Describe flat two-dimensional
right.
art, describe the scene, create a
That's what I do.
storyboard, right? Just to make sure that we're not, doing what you said. Like, we don't want people to just rip off Pokemon, right?
Yeah, that would be bad. Yeah, and you don't want Disney or Fox to come after you either.
Yeah, but to be able to conceptualize, like you said, the first draft of something and have your own ideas in a format, it's kind of neat to think about how many new artists could come about
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
this.
But then again, the trick is selling that once you get that.
Right,
That's
exactly.
and the other thing is it makes it so much easier for people to create things. Then you're also competing with more people for there's still only a limited amount of sales you can do, uh,
Well,
which which is I don't know the answer to that.
I'm interested in hearing your answer to this too. So I was talking with a friend yesterday, and she's making a comic book. We helped her draft some, conceptual artwork and a story. She created the storyline, but her question was like, okay, now that I have this first book and I have this story outline, do I put my own bio in the book, or do I put more about the characters? So this comes back to selling and marketing, right? Are you leaning into first and foremost characters to help showcase who they are and what they do, or is it more about like you, the artist,
I think when
and
you're
what you?
selling it, a lot of it's about you, the artist. I really
Mm,
do.
mm.
But yeah, but you need some sort of backing behind that. You actually need some sort of advertising or budget to get things out there.
How do you?
Yeah,
How do you? How
I
do you
use
get?
Facebook now, and I do sponsored ads on Facebook to get people. Only the big things though, because that could be really expensive. You don't make a lot of money off of it. So
Hmm.
only if I have a big calendar coming, then I will advertise that on Facebook because that's $19, and I can get 10,000 views for $20 or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
then I would get one buy out of that, or two views out of that. So
So
yeah,
there's
yeah, and I'm not good at the business part. I'm good at the creative part, getting it out there and seeing what happens. But
so
once
is
again,
go
my
ahead.
wife does a good job.
But you're partnering or hiring people who, over time, as you gain momentum, right? So
Oh
we're
yeah,
talking about a career. What's your career arc? I mean, a couple decades, yeah?
yeah, since like 1978 or 79. If you want to start, first gag sold.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that that's one of the things if we're talking about people who are just starting, right? Like that this is a commitment on your behalf, John. You're
Oh
saying
yeah,
this
it
is
really
what I
is. But
want to
it's a
do.
fun commitment. Like I would keep a book by my bed. So if I came up, this guy got from another gag writer, and then I'd write down ideas, and like that comes in really handy sometimes, and other times it's raw gibberish when I wake up. Like I
Do
had
you,
pies that eat themselves, and I'm still not sure what I meant by that.
but you're creating, and so
I'm creating, yeah.
there's another question. Uh, I know James is a writer. So, do you maintain relationships with other partners to help keep your creative adventures going? You mentioned editor, publisher. Is there like a loyalty group or a partnership once relationships established? Like,
I have a bunch of readers that will read for me for free, so that's nice. And they are, but I don't like to do that. I actually will hire people as readers on occasion.
interesting.
I'll go to Upworks or something and say, "Hey, do you want to read this?" Because I don't want to take advantage of my readers, and I want it to be more unique to them.
So you do get feedback somehow.
Oh, I get a lot of feedback.
Let's talk about that. How's those feedback
Oh
loops
yeah,
work? So you're not
oh yeah,
listening
oh
to
yeah.
everyone, but you're listening to a certain group of people.
No, you gotta let the feedback, both positive and negatively, just wash all over you. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, yeah, I've had a lot of feedback, especially, yeah, no, I just get a lot of feedback.
How do you know what to implement? Like, because I can only
Because if
think of
I
like
like it, I'll implement it. If I don't like it, I won't. It's my
there
story.
there you
Douglas
go.
Adams told me, yeah, you're gonna, name dropping there. But you're gonna hear from a lot of people if they like it or not. But if they're not paying you, why do you care? And like, yeah,
Hmm.
that kind of makes sense.
Hmm.
I'm, improvising sort of what he said, but
So, but
yeah, if the
it's a
publisher says I don't like this, I want to change, then I will go, well, I don't know. Usually I will agree, but there's a lot of back and forth.
I'm hearing that there maybe isn't one particular formula here, John, for like, approaching
No,
like
there is no.
creating and
I'm not
selling.
that rigid. No, you gotta be creative. You gotta roll with it and stuff like that.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Actually, so Tony asked a great question in the chat. And he was talking about, you mentioned a Comic-Con that it's a little bit out of your comfort zone, or maybe even a lot out of your comfort zone in
Yeah, it's
some
so
ways.
crowded. It's so yucky. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's asking about how, like, kind of how you built relationships there. Were you selling did you go there like I'm gonna sell my stuff, or
Well, I was there
what was the
because they
mindset?
invited me, so I would go to sell things. And then when I go to Rochester Comic Con, then I sit at the table with books, and I don't like to do that.
Mm,
And I don't like to be saying, "Hey, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book."
mm-hmm.
I much prefer to let the books sell themselves somewhere else, so I don't do that anymore. And the last time I was at Rochester Comic Con, the Red Ranger hit on my assistant.
Oh no. See,
Yeah,
John, there's a comic book in this somewhere.
there
Like
is.
this is where inspirations can
Yeah, and
come
then I
from.
talked to a friend who books a lot of these, and she knew exactly who it was. So, oh yeah, it's this
Oh
guy.
no.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I so you go into Comic Cons and you're there to meet people
yeah,
and be
meet people.
yourself,
That's what I'm
right?
there.
I
Yep.
mean, and there's a great question here from Cole. This was actually on my list. So again, ESP wavelengths here, but Cole is asking, what are some of the biggest obstacles you had to overcome when you started, and how did you overcome them?
Oh wow. Okay. The what biggest one to overcome is actually finishing a story, and so
Mm.
I just persisted and kept finishing and finishing. The second one is you get rejected a ton of times. No matter how good you are, it's going to get rejected. So you gotta just like deal with it and just keep sending it and not quitting. And
So
I'm a big believer in showing up and putting in the work.
So is that was kind of one of my questions that could dovetail to it, and maybe the same answer, but I was curious about like the biggest lesson you learned about turning creativity into a career, because some people have creativity as a hobby, and
Oh
to
yeah,
take that
that's
away,
what yeah,
you know,
that's
so it's both for you, maybe. I
well,
don't
I
know.
got lucky because, like I said, my wife has a really good job. I mean, and then I was able, and it worked out well because then I stayed home and I raised our son, who now says my writing is terrible, but still liked me as a child. No, he actually likes my writing on occasion, and so I got to stay home and raise him, and so
Mm.
that was good while writing for comics from all over the world.
So if I could, it sounds like patience, support, commitment. I'm just thinking of words
Yeah,
that'll
those
come
are
into my
those are
mind.
good. Patience, commitment, and yeah, having a thick skin.
Yeah, and support from loved ones,
Yes.
maybe even financial backing in
Yeah,
some
that
ways.
helps. Yeah, you got to
Right,
eat. I mean,
right.
yeah, that's the thing. Everybody has to eat.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And there is reality in this, and I know that personally, I've had people, because I grew up as a fine artist, and I tried to plug that into some way of making money, which worked a little bit in my early career of like graphic design. And I would put paintings into some of the designs I was doing. But at some point, the painting was part of my sort of spiritual outlet.
Right, mine
And it
too. Yes,
started to
yeah.
get a
Writing
little
is what
too
I do. Yeah,
right.
but it's also who I am. But yeah, and then for a while the money was really good when the internet was booming. Like
Mhm.
I'd get $400 per cartoon and stuff like that. Like I'd
Mm,
write a Sunday Marmaduke or a Sunday Dennis the Menace and make $500 to $1,000. But that once the internet got really expanded and there was so much competition and newspapers started shrinking and stuff, that went way down. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
I haven't had a year where I've made $40,000 in a long time.
So that's a great to put a number to this, right? In the
Yeah,
reality of it, right? Now this is
I'm
great. This
hoping
is
to do good this year with calendar coming and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I want to talk about some of the projects you have going on. It's really cool stuff. And we also we can talk offline, but I definitely want to get a couple of ideas to you that maybe we can collaborate on. But there's a teaser in that somewhere. But do you have any tips on character development and how do you come up with the characters and their origin story?
Okay, every character I know, which is kind of weird, is based on a real person I know, which a lot of writers will say, oh no, don't do that. But this is how I know them. This is how I get to know them. So everybody, like Electra, is sort of based, and Plutonian Blonde is sort of based on Olga. But where Olga was Costa Rican roller skating champ, Electra is Central American kickboxing champion. Olga's pretty tough. And
Hmm.
Olga is a doctor of food science. Electra's a surgeon. So I take, and then Working Days. Every character in Working Days is based off of somebody you and I both actually worked with. And on occasion, I will actually call that character by the name of the person that they're based on, not the actual character. So that's how I do it. A lot of
Amazing.
people are against that, but I base everything on somebody I know, and make them different.
Yeah, so when you're coming up with their origin stories, you're taking some version of them and converting it a little bit into some fictional
Yes, and
world.
lots of times, I'll write a character before an origin story, and then the origin story will write itself as the character
Hmm.
writes themselves. Good characters write themselves.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I see there's a couple people here who have been part of our workshops, and what we're doing is we're encouraging people to input some of their real life stories into the initial story
Oh
creation,
yeah,
so that there is meaning and ownership
yeah.
in
No, you
that
need that. Yeah, I mean, it's still write what you know is still holds true.
Write what you know. There you
And
go. There's a
write
big
what you know,
takeaway.
write what you like.
So
And then from the happiness point of view, that should be all that matters. Writing what you know and writing what you like.
yeah,
And the money part shouldn't really matter, but
and I think
you gotta eat.
that's a big piece of this, right? Is the creative outlet. If the writing or the art is a creative outlet, that sometimes the business side of things can muddy that and actually take away from what
Yeah, I can. Oh yeah,
the
but
outlet
you
is,
need
you
that.
know?
Yeah.
So a question that came up from our team, which is I can play off of this character development thing is, when you hit writer's block, maybe you never do, you're
Oh yeah,
such
I
an
get writer's
amazing
block. That's why I have a punch. That's why I have a punching bag. No, it's
there you go.
true. Writer's block, cold shower, uh, take a nap, punching punching bag, take a walk. Those are the things to do. Or just write doodle. Doodling is
Mm.
still great for breaking writers stuff.
Yeah, interesting. That's great. I mean, one of the things that I've found personally is that actually communicating with AI as a sort of mirror,
Oh yeah, yeah,
right?
that's something I couldn't do until like last year. But yeah, that actually does work. But AI knows who I am, so I have to be
Exactly.
careful. Yeah, because they said, "Oh, have you ever used this in your books, John?" It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
yeah, it's like, and then it tells me gags now instead. AI just says, "What was your favorite gag you ever wrote in any of your books?" Like, I don't know. I have 80 books. I don't remember. But yeah, so
Well, here's a really interesting thing that you can do with AI is say, act as if you are the opposite of me, and then give
oh,
me
that's a
some
good idea.
input,
I never thought of
right?
doing that. I'm
So
kind of afraid of the opposite of me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But putting that whole outside the box sort of thinking, and it's almost like having a room full of the antithesis
Yeah.
of me, you know? And so that's kind of how things can evolve or even be compared, and maybe even get through some. I know some people who are painters who will use AI to generate an image that may be in their mind to get past that block. right?
Right.
Because they can't get the color right, or they can't get the frame or the geometry right. So they're not using that as a as the end result, right? They're
Well,
using it as inspiration.
from the artist's point of view, I've been told, throw away your first 1,000 cartoons you write, you draw.
Mm,
But then somebody said, well, somewhere Bill Watterson has 1,000 cartoons that are awesome that he just threw away.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know if that really works or not, but that's what they told me in the olden days. I don't know
So
how
take it
true
with
that
a
is.
grain of
Well,
salt. Like,
Bill's awesome. I mean, Bill's not a nice person in real life, but he's really Calvin and Hobbes is like the greatest. I mean,
yeah. Well, and there's so many lessons in here, you know. It's like do you. Like you do
yeah,
your
oh yeah, you got
process,
to do you. You can't
right?
be anybody else.
Exactly. So John, what's the most fun project you're ever a part of for you personally?
Oh, The Simpsons.
The Simpsons? Why
Yeah,
was that?
yeah, that was really fun. I really like putting words into Bart's and mouth and stuff like that.
Why was it so fun?
Because I didn't grow up, but I love watching them and actually be writing for them. And then to hear, because then they buy rights to some of the stuff too. So or seeing one of my songs on the Rugrats actually get into the Rugrats into the Rugrats comic. And that was I liked Rugrats too. The stuff I could see on TV was really fun. Jay Leno and Joan Rivers saying my words on TV was also really fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
That
it's
was
so
really
cool.
kind of cool. So yeah, that type of stuff. And whenever I'm on TV myself, it's like, oh my god, I look like a jerk.
Ah.
Who's that big dope?
So when
Uh,
we play this replay, that's what you're gonna think.
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure. But when other people say my words and stuff like that, I really like to hear that.
John, what are you working on right now? I know we've talked a little bit about you have a degree now in social and emotional wow,
Health
what's the
education, master's in health education, master's in human behavior, and plus I'm a happiness coach and stuff like that. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm all about positive. I do my column, positive vibes. I do. I'm doing the lighter side of pickleball. That's a national calendar coming out on stores everywhere in August, and I have a new video game, Darwin's Dilemma, coming out also in August. I believe that'll be across all platforms. I don't get royalties for this one. But for the next one, I will. Konami's picked it up now. Konami is the distributor, so that adds a lot of money. So that's nice.
These are you're writing for video games.
This is a video game, yeah. And then I wrote Space Run, which is probably my most successful video game. That sold like 250,000 copies. Sadly, I did not get royalties on that one either. But so that's the other thing I've learned. Try to get royalties when you can,
Mm.
even if you
What's
take a
what
little
do you
less
write?
upfront.
What do you
What?
write for video games? Sort of like the story
I write
arc
the
and detail.
story and the dialogue.
Nice.
I've written
Cool.
tons of dialogue for video games.
And these master's degrees, you're writing books that are all about social emotional
Being
support,
happiness, being happiness,
being happy. Yeah.
happy, yeah, being happy and well adjusted. Can't you tell? I'm so well adjusted.
Yeah. And
Yeah, no, but it
these are
is about the light. Yeah, about not letting things worry you. Being mindful, being in the moment, that type of stuff.
yeah.
Even though my mindfulness is very chaotic. Yeah, it's like I'm
And
not great at that.
these are more children's books, yeah.
But also, I'm redoing Plutonian Blonde a bit now for the more modern audience. I'm adding some of that now too, because I think I
Okay.
have an angel investor who might help make it a movie, but we'll see.
It's amazing. And that type of thing comes about in time,
Yeah,
right?
in
I
time.
mean,
Yeah, I mean, I've been at this a long freaking
I
time.
think that's one of
Yeah.
the things. There's a classic line, overnight success, 15 years in the
Oh
making,
yeah,
and it's
look at
way more
Chappell
than that.
Roan. Yeah, Chappell Roan. Yeah, overnight success, but she's been doing, you know, dozens of years of small gigs.
Of writing and throwing it out, and
Yeah,
writing
yeah,
and throwing it out, and
yeah.
writing and throwing it out. So Cole asked one more question, and how do you get yourself to stick with a story that you write, or do you? Do you
I
bounce around?
do. I do. There are some that I stop, but if I like it, it's pretty easy to stick with it. And I go, oh yeah,
Hmm.
this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. I keep telling myself this is gonna be good, but there are a bunch that never get finished.
So it's more based on feel
Yeah,
and
feel,
your
yeah. Yeah,
personal.
and there's some like I still when I read Plutonian Blonde to this day, I still edit it in my brain. Go, oh yeah,
Mhm.
this word should have been over here, but yeah, Daw refused to do that. They refused to reprint it just so I could edit a few words.
Oh, and this is a good question that just popped into my mind because as a visual artist and a painter, I always would go, okay, I'm going to go into this session and this is going to be the last edit. Like this is it,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
because there's always going to be something. I have paintings that I did 20, 30 years ago that I still look at and say, I should have made that darker. I should have added a color here. So how do you, is there a moment, and this is a very hard thing to quantify, or, as an artist, at least for me, but when you know you're done?
You just gotta, yeah, there isn't. Like I said, yeah, there isn't. But sometimes you just gotta walk away and go, yeah, good enough. I'm not a perfectionist, which is really good. I'm a get it done ist.
Mm.
That works. So my wife's a perfectionist. It's like she always has everything's got to be perfect, and I'm there. Oh, that works.
Well,
So
that's why she's a
yeah,
scientist. You kind of have to be perfect in the science
yeah,
that she
no, you
does.
can't. Nobody's perfect. Yeah, I mean, you
As
can't.
close to
If you
perfect as
chase
possible.
perfection, you're going to be unhappy.
Yeah, I think that that's a great lesson in life, and
Yeah,
also especially in the creative field, right?
yeah,
I mean
because
that.
and and no matter what you write, somebody's not going to like it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. But what I do, if I like it, I figure enough people will like it, so I can make
Yeah, yeah. So John, we have is there anything that you would like to say to aspiring writers, people who are just starting off,
keep
like,
writing.
yeah.
Don't let people tell you no. If you like it, keep doing it. If you don't like it, stop doing it. Okay, it's
It
that
sounds so
easy. Yeah,
simple, right?
yeah. It's
And it
really kind
is.
of simple. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I really appreciate you spending all this time with us. And, maybe we can do this. I don't know if there are more questions or things that people want to ask. Certainly, we'll produce and put this replay out. But we have this online community that we're starting, and I want to ask John, which, like, I have a connection with you. We go way back, probably to when I first came into this world. You may
Yeah,
have
you're
known
a
me
little
that long.
kid. Yeah, sure.
Um,
Like, little.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so there's certainly a connection that we have, and that anyone who's part of our community can connect with you through me and through our network. But is it cool if people have ideas that you might look at them, or like, I know you don't want to get flooded with concepts. This is you're a writer, right? So
Right.
are
Yeah. So
there
I don't like to. Yeah. Like I've stopped reading other science fiction,
mhm.
so I don't accidentally steal. So I only read my own stuff, and I read nonfiction.
Yeah, and so you can maybe say, "Hey, this might be a general sort of concept for helping write," or
Yeah, I
you
can do
know,
stuff like I can do general stuff. I can't do specifics, and I don't want to
yeah,
be accused of taking somebody else's idea
of-
either.
that's totally fair and
Yeah.
very honorable. So why don't we stay in touch, and we'll kind of do formats like this, where if people want to come and ask you particular questions. I see James has one more.
Sure.
Do you have any additional recommendations on industry associations, conferences to attend, contests to enter, groups, or more
Oh
visuals?
my god, I hate contests. Okay, usually you're just wasting money. Even though I see my things from winning America's Best and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
it actually, yeah, I used to do the Syracuse one, America's Best, whatever, and I won the screenwriting one, and I won the book one. The book one eventually became Plutonium Blonde. Or no, Doomsday Brunette. The screenwriting one got me a coach. Not the coach, the TV show. I got to write a article, spec script for them, but then Coach got canceled, so I sort of blame myself for that.
It was you. It was you.
But yeah, so I have no recommendations in today's world because yeah, I don't. But this is in the '80s, '90s. I used to do the America's Best one, and I'd win that a
Mm.
lot. So
But
therefore, I think it was good.
this may come back full circle to our theme in the beginning, which is out of your comfort zone.
Well, make
So,
sure you copyright anything that you're sending to any of those places,
okay.
so nobody steals it.
And so and some competitions that I've seen, because we've had some youth enter some competitions through different libraries and things, that um they don't take any ownership of that, but then that is out in the world, right? And so
Right.
someone
But
else.
that's fine. If you don't have anything going, it's good to get stuff out in the world and
Mhm.
build a following. I don't think that's ever a bad thing.
Well, it sounds like maybe that is that what happened with the things that you entered, where someone maybe picked up on something or stretched your comfort
No,
zone to be
they
able to.
actually became my own works.
Yeah.
But so many times you pay so much money and I don't think you get money out of it. I don't think you
Mm.
get out of it. But
I think it's interesting too that you talk about not reading other
right,
genre. They're the same genre. I remember hearing from a really high level innovator and business entrepreneur who said, "I don't read industry magazines. I don't go to industry events.
right,
I
yeah,
listen to the complete opposite, like we were saying with AI. Like, make the opposite of me, and then have that
yeah.
person talk to me."
I do the same thing. I like to read, like you know,
It,
happiness stuff and psychology stuff and neurology stuff. Yeah, that's what I read.
then you get these innovative creative concepts that maybe no one's ever written about
Right.
before
That's
in
well,
that
no,
niche
no,
too.
that never happens. No, for anybody. There's 12 ideas. They've all been written. You have to put your own spin on the idea because there's no unique cool thing.
Yeah, yeah. John, people can go to your website, I
I
guess.
don't just Facebook. Just
Just
follow me on
Facebook.
Facebook.
Just
Yep.
follow John on Facebook. We'll also
I'm old,
make
so I use Facebook. Yeah, I'm on Instagram too, but I don't do much.
okay. And we will make sure that we certainly post this. We'll keep you coming back as much as you will. And I
If
mean,
people want me, yeah, I mean, yeah.
if anybody, what's that?
If anybody wants to see me again, yeah, sure. But yeah.
Yeah, no, this has been amazing. I mean, I know I've learned a lot, and I think it's just really intriguing to
Oh,
talk to
I
somebody
just
who's
noticed chat is open. Okay.
been there and done that. I'm pretty sure I got to everybody's questions in the chat. Hopefully, you all had a good time. There's a couple minutes. I know John, you have a hard stop at 6, so I want to make sure that we're being very conscious of
Sure.
your
I
time.
have to go play pickleball.
Yeah, man. So any last parting words? I just am really grateful that you spent some
No,
time
write
with
what you
us.
like and keep writing.
Amazing.
And yeah,
Um,
don't set a limit on how much you write every day. Just try to write every day.
yep, yep. I mean,
Yeah. Because
keep
if on
doing
a
it.
good day, I'll write maybe 1,000 words or so. And once I wrote 20,000 words because I agreed to do a short story for a publication and I forgot about it until it came up. It's like, oh crap, I got to write this now.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, so if anybody is watching this recording, I know most of the people here are part of our online community already, but we're building this network and go to our website and you can click on the top tab, online courses, and you can see events and all those things will take you to a network that we launched on a platform called School, where we have courses and things that walk people through sort of the intro level creative, maybe to even get through creative blocks. So thank you, John. You're
you
amazing.
guys for
Appreciate
listening.
you. And hey man, are you competitively playing pickleball tonight or is this like a
No,
warm-up?
no, I play pickleball only for fun these days.
Okay.
Yeah, competitiveness takes away the fun.
I was, and look, here we're talking about making comic books for creative reasons versus the business and all
Yeah,
this
and
other
I do
stuff. So,
every, yeah, comic books is my competitiveness. My writing, I get, but even though you're not really competing with other writers because there is a big world, and just because somebody buys my book doesn't mean they can't buy somebody else's book. It's not
right
a one and
on.
done thing. So that's
Right
why
on.
that's the other reason why I like this. It usually is a pretty nourishing career where everybody sort of supports each other for the most part. Even though
I
sometimes I get mad when I see somebody got a really good deal. I gotta admit that. Crap, I could have got that deal.
Human nature. I mean,
Yeah, it is human nature, but yeah,
I
I try not to do that. I try to be positive with other people getting good deals because the world's big.
yeah, man, abundance. Having an abundance mindset is
Yep.
really where we come from with all the things that we do too. So, thanks again for your time. This has been really fun and super
Okay.
enjoyable.
I
And
hope people enjoyed it.
we'll see you soon. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, John.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.